We're good to go. All right. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for showing up today on a Saturday. My name is Deborah Collazo, and I will be talking to you guys about mental health for founders and employees working in startups. So the unique challenges and the unique perspectives that really might influence mental health for all in startups. So thank you for Venture for America for the invitation, especially Brianna and Marvelous, who have been really, really great at getting this all set up. So before we begin, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about me. So yeah, I'm an IO psychologist, which is industrial organizational psychologist. I'm licensed in Puerto Rico. I have a BA in psychology from American University in DC. And I also have a MS in IO psychology from Albizu University here in Puerto Rico. I'm also a 200-hour yoga teacher, which definitely you will see in my approach how I bring in a little bit of mindfulness and just being very mindful of how we approach things in organizations. I'm based in San Juan. I am the daughter of entrepreneurs. My dad has his own medical clinic, and my mother has an aquatic wellness center. And so I've always seen both the freedom that entrepreneurship can provide and also the struggles that are unique to entrepreneurship. But I'm also a serial entrepreneur. This is my second venture, and I started a yoga business. I had a yoga studio from 22 to 26 approximately. It was called Tuya Yoga, and it was such a great space to share the teachings of yoga and bring people together. But all of that experience has gotten me to where I am today. I am the CEO and principal consultant of DMC Consulting, which is a boutique consulting firm based on the science of IO psychology. So enough about me. I want to tell you guys a little bit about the objectives, about what we want to accomplish today. So together we will uncover why mental health issues can arise or worsen for founders and employees working in startups, and why it is so important to talk about mental health in the entrepreneurial space. And finally, we will discuss a 3-level approach to ensuring workplace safety and health in startups. So I know people are coming in. If everybody can make sure that they're muted, that would be great. And welcome to people that are just trickling in. So I wanted to start this off today with a few stats so that we can really see what we're talking about when we're talking about the differences between mental health in big corporations or mental health in general, and where today we are going to anchor that discussion into the entrepreneurial space. So did you know that Forbes has called depression an epidemic among entrepreneurs and creatives? Did you know that 72% of entrepreneurs that participated in a study conducted by UC Berkeley self-reported mental health concerns? That's a lot of entrepreneurs. And Michael Freeman in the UK has found that entrepreneurs are 50% more likely to report having a mental health condition. And this is almost all of the statistics that are available because there is not much research done specifically on mental health concerns when directed towards entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial space. So I know what you're thinking. So you're thinking, Deborah, are you telling me that entrepreneurship somehow causes mental health illness or distress? And no, there is no causal relationship, but yes, there is a relationship. So let's talk about it. The short answer, of course, it's no. Mental health, 3/4 of mental health issues in adults start before the ages of 24. And most entrepreneurs are between the ages of 40 and 60. So there is no causal relationship there. We always have to remember that mental health issues and distress are a result of the interaction between both our nature and our environment, because we are biopsychosocial beings. So bio meaning that we are physical beings, we have a body, psycho meaning that we have a mind, right? Our psychology, and social being the fact that we are inherently social beings and that we need that connection with others to ensure both our mental, physical, and social health. So the short answer is no, entrepreneurship does not cause mental illness, but there is a relationship, and I do want to talk about that relationship today. So the question, we can reframe it to be, can mental health issues arise or worsen for founders and employees working in startups? And the short answer is 100%. And we will talk about today why that is. So there are a couple of reasons, I've identified 5, why mental health issues can arise or worsen for founders and employees working in startups. The first being that mental health issues affect entrepreneurs just as they affect everyone else, okay? So 19% of adults are experiencing a mental illness in the US right now, and those are numbers from 2021. We will have numbers for 2022 soon, but that means that 1 in every 5 Americans is experiencing a mental illness or a mental health condition. So obviously we can deduce that entrepreneurs are within those 1 in 5 Americans. So it just means that mental health issues can affect entrepreneurs just as they can affect everyone else. So the second reason why mental health issues can arise or worsen for founders and startup employees is because entrepreneurship is hard. Just the nature of entrepreneurship is both fun, exhilarating, and it breeds the possibility of freedom and success. And it's really, really exciting. But on the other hand, it's very risky. Uncertainty is almost the only constant for entrepreneurship and that path. In fact, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics has said that 20% of businesses actually close down in the first year. And for those businesses who actually get to 5 years, it's only going to be half of those who survive the first year. So as we can see, it's just entrepreneurship is hard, market conditions change, people change, pandemics arise, and it's just a lot of uncertainty. So that's one of the reasons. And I think one of the biggest reasons for why mental health issues arise or worsen for founders and startup employees is the entrepreneurial reality. So founders and startup employees experience a myriad of circumstances that can and do affect their mental health. And let's talk about that reality for a little bit. So I want to go into 2 realities, the startup reality in general, and also the founder reality, because I do think founders have a lot of power in how they affect that startup reality. So for example, the startup reality, it's a lot of irregular hours. In my literature review, I found that it is almost normal for startup employees to be required to work between 50 to 60 hours a week. And some founders report working up to 100 hours a week. And for those who study this, like me, like we know that working more doesn't mean that we're working to achieve more, but we're just not working as smart as we could be working. Achievement mentality, which is not a bad thing at all. Like the opposite, achievement mentality is important. It's just when we only focus on achievements, the startup reality can, it can become a risk factor. So lack of control over the speed of growth. This is what I see most with my clients. They have penetrated the market. They have done a product or service that is really, really effective in their markets, but they're growing too fast for the structure and the systems that they have in place to actually grow with that speed. Little to no effective communication avenues when we're all
TV's really
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I just heard someone. Sorry. So when we have a lot of people working on a lot of different projects and there's a go, go, go mentality, there are little to no communication avenues that can support us as we move forward and try to take care of our own mental health. Too much work, obviously, hustle culture. I see this a lot. Poorly defined responsibilities, lack of organizational support, of course, because everybody is so busy. And changing priorities, mainly because the market changes or because the product needs to be changed or the service needs to be altered to fit better into the market. So those changing priorities really do make that instability and chaos feel a little bit harder for employees working in startups. But then on the flip side, we have the founder reality, which is not easier either. Often I see that founders wear a lot of hats. So sometimes the founder is also the CMO, the COO, the CPO, and or the CFO, because I've seen many combinations. And I know this is part of it. You start your business and it's usually a solopreneur until you get that growth and you are able to hire a team to delegate those hats to. And usually at the beginning, founders have more demands than they have resources. So this means that when we talk about resources, think about money, time, energy, and relationships. So usually you're going to have more demands on your time, on your energy, on your money, than you're going to have resources to fill that gap. And it's definitely something that creates stress. Founders are definitely focused on the bottom line. Sometimes they invest their own money. Sometimes they have investors who they have to like let them know what's going on with the business and achieve certain goalposts. There's difficulty balancing life and work. I see this a lot. Gaps in knowledge, passion versus business acumen. So a lot of founders have one specific skill or one specific product or service that they're really passionate about, and that they're really good at doing. But sometimes when founders go into the entrepreneurial journey, they don't necessarily have the business acumen to actually have them succeed in that process of the entrepreneurial journey. And I see this a lot. And that is why 20% of businesses fail in the first year. It's a couple of reasons, but usually that business acumen part is really important. And that's why I think VFA is so effective, because you guys do teach your fellows the skills and the knowledge that they need to build that business acumen and pair it up with a passion. But not a lot of founders do have that. Part of the founder reality is also the risk and the financial vulnerability, as we focused on the bottom line. And at the end of the day, they're just juggling a lot of balls. And I think that it is humanly impossible to be juggling all the balls all the time and never, ever, ever allow one of them to fall down. So balls will fall, and that is okay. And that's what we're talking about today. So we're coming back to the 5 reasons why mental health issues can arise or worsen for founders and startup employees. And I want to talk about the 4th one, which is founder traits. So psychologists agree that creative individuals are genetically predisposed to mental illness, and creatives often go into the entrepreneurial journey, not all, but some. And so Michael Freeman did this study where he was seeing whether energetic, motivated, and creative people were more likely to be entrepreneurs, and that were more likely to have more stronger mental and emotional states. And that was true. He found that to be true. And when I say strong emotional states, I mean hopelessness, loss of motivation, and depression. And I think that that also has to do a lot with how when we hustle, and we don't have necessarily the support in place or the knowledge in place, that business acumen, then it can lead to burnout. And like the picture shows, many founders can burn out and then just close their businesses, or their businesses simply just aren't successful because they're not being able to manage those demands in terms of the resources that they have. So founder traits, it's not a bad thing. On the contrary, being creative, being motivated, being high achieving are all really positive qualities, but they just have to be kept in check so that they don't affect our mental health as founders. And number 5, it is just not a priority until it's too late. It is the reality. So the entrepreneurship journey is really, really hard, and it encompasses a lot of different things. So the complexity of it all makes it really hard to just prioritize mental health over other things. That, for example, just paying our employees or actually delivering what our clients expect of us. So I think we do have competing energies in that sense. And so it is just not a priority until it's too late. And what is too late? Well, I see a lot of turnover rates in startups. People leave because of the chaos and the lack of certainty and control over their work or where the organization is going. I see that in the startup employee mindset. And I also see in the founder mindset a lot of burnout, just people that are saying my business is out of control. I have founders that tell me, I want to sell it. This is it. I'm done. Like, I can't handle it anymore. And it's not because they don't love their business. It's not because they don't love their clients. It's just that the speed of growth has been so like rapid that they have not been able to catch up. And it's just, you know, when it's too late is that when they're out of gas and really looking for that support. So I don't want anybody here to get to that point. I want to put some safeguards in place before that. So from the IO perspective, we are taught that it is the organization's responsibility to take care of the employee and the executive team. So think of bigger organizations, GE or Amazon or Google. They have teams of people that are just, their only focus is to ensure workplace safety. But what happens when there is no HR department or chief people officer? You know, what happens when we don't have a whole team focusing on that and allowing us to get the support that we need, both as founders and as employees working in startups? So that's kind of the challenge that I see. And that's kind of my passion and why I am talking to you guys about this, because I do think that startups deserve this information. They deserve the safeguards and the support and the systems to actually be empowered as founders and as the executive team to take matters into their own hands. I think it's possible. I don't think it has to be super expensive, but we do have that need to empower founders to take matters into their own hands. So how do I propose to do that, right? I just think that we need to impact with this message and with this need at every aspect of the journey. So every step of the way. For example, thinking about how accelerators and incubators can become advocates for the development of health conscious startups. I don't see a lot of conversations in accelerators and incubators about how are we actually safeguarding both the founders' mental health and physical health and the employees that work there. I don't see a lot of that in this space. How can masterminds and founder support programs prioritize mental health both for founders and their teams? I am seeing a lot more about this in the entrepreneurial space, but I think we can always do more. Also, it is a very stigmatized topic. So how can we destigmatize the topic so that we can support each other more effectively? And I always think about the fact that when you have a headache, it's not uncommon for you to tell your team member, I have a headache. I'm gonna have to shift my work so that I can do this a little bit later because I literally cannot focus on my computer anymore. And that's fine. But when we have anxiety, when we're feeling burnt out, when we are depressed and unmotivated, it's not talked about especially with our colleagues or with the founders or the founders themselves. It's not talked about. And if it's not talked about, then we cannot support each other more effectively. And finally, how can we create businesses that safeguard health and safety, whether or not they are growing at the pace they promised their investors they would? I do see that in the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of pressure to hit those OKRs or to hit those KPIs. And I think that's really important. I personally love KPIs, but they cannot come over the human aspect of the people actually working in the organization. And that's kind of my point. So how can we ensure workplace well-being? I have a 3-level approach, and it basically touches on 3 levels. The level 1, so the founder; level 2, the organization, the organizational culture; and number 3, the individual. And when I say the individual, I mean the employees working in the startup. The dotted line around is the organization, and you're gonna see that I have bi-directional lines from what impacts each other. So the founder and the culture are bi-directionally impacted. So the founder creates the culture, but obviously the culture also influences the individual, and the individual also, it will impact the organizational culture. It will form it in a different way, which will affect the founder. And just yesterday, I was talking to a founder who said that one of her problems was that she did not feel like she was welcomed in the culture anymore. It's a tech company, and they were talking about how they were not, so in the terms of leadership, they were not getting along at all. And it's because one of the co-leaders, one of the co-founders, was actually being liked the culture that was forming, and the other one didn't. So there is a bi-directional relationship here between the founder, the org culture, and the individual that we always have to keep in mind when we talk about this 3-level approach. But let's go one by one and just talking about what it means to impact health and well-being in those 3 levels. So level 1 is the founder, not because it is most important than anything else, but just because the founder has the most impact on the culture. They created the culture initially in their first act of leadership as they opened the business, and they continue to do so with their actions. So if I have any founders in the audience, all eyes are on you. You know, this is your leadership act. How you approach your health and well-being will set the tone for everyone on your team. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the different areas that this encompass. But first, I want to share a story with you. It's an analogy by Nora Roberts, and she says that founders at any moment, you know, leaders of young businesses at any moment are juggling 4 balls. So you have your health and wellness, which includes your mental health, your friends and family, your spirit, and your business. So imagine that you're juggling these balls, and I probably know that you feel this way anyways. So you're juggling these balls, but she says something really important. She says, you will know, like you will figure out that the business ball is a rubber ball. And if you drop it, it will bounce back and you can keep juggling. But what she says is, but health, which includes mental health, friends and family, and the spirit, which is I'll talk about in a second, they are crystal balls. And if you have a crystal ball and it drops, it's going to shatter, it's going to break, and it's probably going to be really hard to put back together. Okay, so that's what I want to have you think about today, founder. How are you taking care of your mental overall health today? You know, what are you doing for self-care? What are you doing to ensure that you are bringing your best, most energetic self to work each and every day? Because that's what your team needs. Your team does not need a super caffeinated, hasn't slept in 3 weeks person who is just go, go, go. Your team needs a leader. Your team needs somebody that will motivate and inspire them to achieve the vision that your startup is creating in the world and your impact. So I want you to take stock of how you're taking care of both your mental and overall health today. How are you taking care of your family and friends? You know, as we study psychology, we know that one of the biggest indicators of strong mental health is how connected we feel to others. And I do see a lot of times founders that are just very hyper focused on their startup, and it's amazing because sometimes that's what it takes, you know. But sometimes what it takes is that you literally stop talking to your spouse about stuff. You stop talking and connecting to your children. You're going through the motions, but you're not really prioritizing that connection. You're not seeing your friends anymore, you know, and that's something that's going to be really important to ensure mental health for the founder, especially. And third, how are you taking care of your spirit? And when I say spirit, I don't mean dogma or religion. I mean, how are you connecting with yourself? You know, I always think about self and spirit. Like if I take the founder hat off, what is left? You know, who is it that I am? And how do I connect with that person on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis? So those balls are crystal balls. And if you drop your family ball, it can break, it can shatter, trust decreases. If you drop your mental health and overall health ball, it definitely will affect your physical health and mental health. And if you take like that spirit and you just ignore it and you drop that ball as well, then you're not going to be connected to that thing that gives you your passion, your inspiration. And that is really why your startup is going to be so successful, because you have that spark inside you that is going to help everyone just feel that energy as well. So remember, business is a rubber ball. It will bounce back. You can lose a client and not lose your business. You can miss a meeting or a conference and not lose your business. Business is a rubber ball. Focus on what matters, and your business and your team members will be better for it. I know you're juggling a lot of balls, but I know you can do it. Level 2, so organizational culture. So this is a little bit bigger. This is a little bit deeper within the organization. And in this 3-level approach, what I propose is to develop a culture of well-being. But before we can develop a culture of well-being, we need to understand what org culture is. And it's basically the not so easy to put into words, this is what we do things around here. But I propose a different approach. I say it's the intersection between what we say we do things around here and how we actually do things around here, and how does that interact on a daily basis is organizational culture, because we do have those norms, those written things, or we have that onboarding presentation, but the day-to-day experience can feel very different from what we have written or established. So it's the intersection between that is actually org culture. But how do we develop a culture based on well-being? Well, we do that by aligning business values to health and well-being and living in integrity with those values all the time. So I guess my first question for you, founder, or the startup employees that I have present today is, does your organization have values? That's the first question. And the second question is, are those values only focused on external relationships? For example, like excellent customer experience can be a value, and that's amazing. But what about the people living within the organization? Do we want them to also have an excellent experience? So really think about those values and how you can, in the future, start aligning those business values to your health and well-being. But beyond that, I have a big recommendation. This is your homework. If you have any place to write, this is a really, really powerful exercise that you can do both if you're startup employee, you can suggest this to the leadership, or if you are a founder, you can do it with your team. So the exercise goes like this. You have to talk to your people. So you have to take 2 to 3 hours if you can. 1 hour would be fine, but it's a little bit more complex. 2 to 3 hours to talk to your people. If you're a small organization, have everyone both on the office or on a call. If it's a bigger organization, I recommend just the executive team. Sit down and talk about what wellness and health looks like in this organization particularly. And yes, I have to say this organization particularly, because health and well-being in a tech startup will be very, very different for what would look like in for example, a construction company. I've worked in both, and I've seen that they're very different cultures. So health and well-being will be very different in each one. So you have to ask the questions that I'm going to tell you. First, what does workplace well-being look like in your business? So what does it actually look like? So what do we actually do? What does it mean to us? Do we even think about it? Do we even talk about it? Because if we don't even do that, then obviously it's going to be a longer road. But if you do talk about it, in what terms do you talk about it? Do you mainly focus on physical health, or do you also see how social, mental, and spiritual health also play a part in that culture? That's up to you guys to discuss. Second, which behaviors promote workplace well-being today? And these are the things that you are actually doing. So for example, behaviors that promote workplace well-being are boundaries, mental health breaks, time to connect to each other at a personal level, leaving at the time we said we were going to leave to spend time with our families and friends, disagree and question leadership in a healthy and respectful way, because we do have that trust culture where we can actually question each other. So what behaviors actually you guys are doing today that promote well-being, and which behaviors endanger workplace well-being today? So think of the things you are actually doing as well. So for example, not having any boundaries, Are we emailing people on Saturdays and expecting them to actually respond to those emails on their time off? Are we not encouraging people to take time off? Are we not encouraging team members to disagree with us as leaders or with each other? If somebody left and we have that, empty seat, are we understaffed and we're just having everybody take a little bit of that responsibility and we are becoming overstaffed and overworked? Is there passive aggression in the organization? All these things affect mental health for the employees, and it's part of our culture. So what changes does the team want to implement to increase workplace well-being? And so this is the last question and the most important question. So as we laid everything else, as we've seen what it actually looks like and what it actually doesn't look like, we can decide as a team to implement different changes. Start small, okay? Don't start big, but be consistent about them, make a plan, make it real, as you would any other business objective. I know that you guys know how to do strategic planning. So I know that you can say, okay, if these are our wellness goals, well-being goals, how can we plan them out and make them part of our everyday so that we actually stick to it? I recommend designating a person as an ambassador for the change that we want to see. So this is your homework. Please, please, please go into your organizations and try it out and see if it sparks conversations that actually enable change. The last level is the individual, which means the team members that are actually working in the startup. And this is something that we can work from the founder and executive team. So how can they empower individual team members to take care of their health? But I also think it's really important for us to empower the individual team members to ask for what they need. Because what I see a lot of the times is that, okay, so you don't put safeguards in place to make me feel safe in the organization, but I don't know how to ask for them either, And so we need to tell employees from startups that they have rights, that they have things that they need to be able to feel in their day-to-day to actually promote wellness and health in the organization. And so how can we empower both, So my recommendation is to celebrate team members when they engage in self-care, both in and out of the office. If you saw that this person left at 3 to pick up their kids and came back to do a meeting, it's like, thank you for going and doing that and coming back, because workplace balance and family is important. So really congratulating and celebrating team members when they actually engage in behaviors that are going to promote well-being in the organization. If you see somebody meditating at the lunch hour, don't mock them, celebrate them, because that is going to help everybody else also feel like they can actually do that. Celebrate achievements and do not move the goal line further. This is going to be really important. I see in a lot of startups that we, for example, have a 90-day plan, we achieve it, and we just say, great, let's just set another more aggressive 90-day metric to achieve. And that's great, because we do want to grow, we do want to push ourselves, but we do have to stop and celebrate and just as a team recognize that we did it. We actually achieved this goal, and we stop and we actually celebrate. So in scaling up, which is a methodology that I use with my clients, we have 90-day themes, and we set at the beginning of that 90 days, we just set what are we going to do to celebrate at the end of the 90 days. So we are always thinking of how are we going to recognize our team for doing what we ask them to, so that's something to think about. Also, providing tools is going to be really important to empower our individual team members. I'm just going to share a few, but you can definitely do more research on that. The Daily Shine is part of the Shine app, and it's a podcast. There's a bunch of podcasts, but I love this one in particularly because it's a 10 to 12-minute podcast that shares daily tools to improve your life, to strengthen your resolve, to strengthen your purpose, and really work at your mental health every single day. The Shine app also has a employee well-being program that founders can actually go to their website, and they have an employee well-being program based on the app. It's an award-winning app, so I also recommend that. Buddhify is one of my favorite meditation apps because they have a meditation for literally each moment of the day. But there are two that are really important for me. It's the work break meditation and also the arriving home after work meditation, because so often we bring our work back home and we did not disconnect, or we just closed our computer but didn't mentally disconnect from the work. So that's something, it's a $2.99 app in the App Store, I think. 29K is a personal toolbox and supportive community to live a full life. I love it. It's free. It has videos. It has a community where you can share, which also increases that level of belonging that people feel. And finally, Fit On is a free exercise class app for all levels in a short period of time. So if you encourage, for example, people to work out during the day at their lunch hour, stuff like that, that can be really a good tool to provide to your team. So finally, my recommendations to empower our individual team members is to reach out to them when you know they're having a hard time. I know that in the day-to-day operations, it seems like there's no time to stop. And especially with remote teams, it's really hard to gauge whether somebody is actually having a hard time or not. But as a leader and just as colleagues, do take the time to see which team members are doing really well and which team members are having a hard time. Sit down, have that time to actually connect and see how the organization can help them. And of course, take a preventative approach to mental health, and we have to talk about it. Talk about it in meetings, talk about it in your monthly or yearly strategic planning meetings. How can we destigmatize this for everyone in the organization? If you have a mental health disorder, please take care of yourself in the way that you know how. I think it's really easy for us to forget that we all have something. Like, we might have a mental health disorder, we might have a chronic pain syndrome, a chronic digestive issue. We just have, we're humans and we're gonna have things that we're dealing with at all times. So please take care of yourself in the ways that you know how. So put those safeguards in place for yourself as an individual and make sure that your company knows which ones they are so that they can also support you if need be. If you think something feels off, this is my very IO message. Please seek support. There are many ways to seek support. It could be either through going to a practitioner in your local area. BetterHelp offers counseling online. There are ways to seek the support that you need. And if something feels off, it probably is. So follow your intuition and please empower yourself to actually seek the support that you need. If you already have support, whether or not you have a mental health disorder, please keep at it. It's really easy to, in the day-to-day, oh, I feel fine, I'm good, I'm done. But we are never done working on ourselves. We are never done on working on our health and well-being. And even if you don't have a lot of things going on, having support, even on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, can be really, really good to empower you both in and out of your professional life. So that's something that I usually recommend. I will leave you with this quote: dream big, start small, but most of all start, by Simon Sinek. Because I know well-being in an organization that is go, go, go all the time can feel really daunting and really hard to do and implement. But if you start small, it can really make a difference in the long term. If you keep at it, in the long term, it will make a difference. So please dream big, start small, but most of all, start. Any questions? I think I'm out of time, but just in case anybody has a quick question.
Yeah, I think some people hopped out, but I do have a quick question for you. Is there a company that you know of or that you've experienced firsthand that you really either admire their approach to mental health and how they handle it with their employees, or like on the other hand of that, like you've seen them handle it very wrong?
Well, I think it's not like they do it absolutely well or absolutely horribly. I actually have this one, I had this one client last year. They're a health consulting company. And they do they do really like something really, really well that I really admire, and something that, you know, can be improved on. So they worked with Smartsheet. I don't know if you know it's a project management tool. And so they have everything there, but they actually at the beginning of the year created one spreadsheet that tracked everybody's health goals. So everybody shared their health goals, and they actually track it every single week, and they celebrate each other when they're actually, you know, accomplishing those goals. They do that in a very informal coffee chat. It's not something that is like, like very intense, but it's also very good that they do that on a weekly basis, and they're all updating their goals. And it's a way to keep you motivated. They have like one line for every week of the year, for every member, for every goal. So I thought that it was a really great way to actually track how everybody's individual goals and how they were doing on that. And then on the flip side, they were understaffed. They were on their path to hiring more people, but as you know, the talent war is a very real thing, and they weren't getting the people that they needed, but they kept saying yes to a lot of projects. So everybody was overworked, and they just never stopped saying yes to clients. And because I am an IO psychologist, I recommend that you set boundaries in place with your clients as well. Like, it's okay to have a wait list. It's okay to say not right now, because your team members really can't deal with any more work. So I think it's not that organizations do it all perfectly or all horrible, but that's just a really great example of a company that's just doing the best they can.
Awesome. Thank you. That was super insightful of I love that answer. I think Jessica is still in the session. Jessica, if you have any questions, you could let us know, but otherwise.
I think all the sessions started right at 11.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna